Hi, welcome to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. We are here to interview another ex-member of the House of Yahweh, and as always, we ask you to like, share, and subscribe to support us on our YouTube channel, and you can also join us on Facebook as well, where you will get friendly reminders about upcoming episodes. I want to thank, first of all, my co-host, Autumn, for being with here, and who is truly the heart of our show. And I also, our guest today is the high-spirited, independent stepsister. She's my stepsister now, Nicole Shark, who many of you probably knew in the House of Yahweh as Nikki, but she goes by Nicole now. And Nicole and I are lucky enough to have become stepsisters about 5 years ago when her dad married my mom, who they are both ex-members and married after they both left. So, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you here as a guest.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, Nicole, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to finally get to see you again. You're one of my favorites because, we were the same age people to hang around
with.
Same age. She's going to put that in there.
I like her age. All right, well, let's step right into this. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. When did you join the House of Yahweh, and how long were you a member for?
Well, our first feast was 1988. It was a couple years prior to that my dad had gotten the literature, and we were kind of practicing at home prior to getting up the courage, to go down to Texas, being that we're, from Ohio. It was a trip. So I want to say it was probably about 3 years prior to that he started, but my first feast was 1988. So I was 10. And then I'm trying to think the year. It would have been, when did we leave? I was 23 when we left. So it was 2002, 2001, 2002-ish.
So you were there you were a member for about 13 years then?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Wow. I did not realize that. I did not realize that you were there past me.
And before.
Yeah.
She was there before us and stayed a lot longer than us, yeah.
We did some time. Yeah.
Okay.
Nicole, what were your first impressions of the House of Yahweh, if you remember?
I do. I remember actually the trip down there, being that our family didn't really take vacations often because my father was self-employed, and so we just didn't get to go many places. And this was like the first trip, and so we were excited, and we hit Texas, which looks a lot different than Ohio, like a lot different. So I was excited because I was 10, I didn't really know what we were getting into, I'm just kind of along with the ride, me and my sister. And so we got down there, and you pull in, and you got your face pressed up against that car window just looking, and we pulled into TMP Lane. We were the old in-town campgrounds, and I remember pulling up and just looking around. There was a playground, there was other kids, and I was so excited, because I didn't really know the full scope of it. I'm a kid, I just wanted to go, play. I wanted out of the car after all those hours, and I just wanted to play. It wasn't as, I want to use the term fancy, as I expected. It was, the red clay and some dilapidated buildings and some old campers, and I didn't really know what to make of it. I was just excited to get out of the car and go play on some play equipment. So at that age, it was really hard to kind of gauge what we were there for.
Right.
So this is kind of going to be a two-parted question. Sorry, Mel.
That's okay.
What were your thoughts on multiple marriage and the slavery teachings? And then after that, were you ever approached for multiple marriage?
Well, the first part. Okay. Thoughts on it. Obviously, about what year did that come out, to kind of refresh my memory?
I would say that was
1993.
Yeah.
1993.
Yeah, because
it was in October and it came out in July.
Right. That's right. Okay. Well,
Actually, I
obviously
think
I thought it was a bunch
no,
of crap.
I think it was 94 because I think our babies were already born. No, they weren't. You're right. You're right. We were pregnant. Okay.
Obviously, as many people that might remember kind of my attitude and how I handled myself growing up my teen years down there, I didn't have a problem speaking out when I thought something was bull crap. And this was no exception. I know I embarrassed my dad a number of times by pretty much just saying, like, this is some bull crap. Like, I don't agree with this. I don't like this. It's not fair. I was a teenager, and the last thing I wanted to hear was to be told that because, I was female, that meant that I was pretty much property, and that didn't set well with me. I just thought it was really, really sexist, for lack of a better term, very one-sided. And now that we see the bigger picture on the outside of it, it all makes sense as to why they, were doing it that way. It absolutely makes sense, but it really just pissed me off. For lack of a better term, it just really made me mad. I don't think I was ever approached for a multiple marriage, not to my knowledge, at least. I know that my dad was approached for talking about wanting to do like a courtship or whatnot. Somebody was interested, in me, and that didn't go over well either because I just wasn't having it. The whole idea of some man coming to my father to say I'm interested in your daughter without ever really talking much to me was absurd. Because like, you don't know me, you don't know anything about me, you know what I'd like or what I don't like. And now obviously we know that doesn't matter to them. Like they have no,
Right.
Concern or interest in any of that. So
Now,
I
was
do
this
remember
man older than you?
a little bit. Yeah. And he was kind of friends with the family. And it was like, no, I didn't want to be married in the House of Yahweh. I knew that early on. I knew what marriage in the House of Yahweh would mean for me, and I wasn't having it. And I was told multiple times, or I should say my parents were told multiple times they'd have a hard time marrying me off because I wouldn't be submissive and I wouldn't listen and follow directions. So, they were, a couple elders did tell my family that. And my whole response to that was, good, that's the freaking point. I don't want to do this. Like, I don't, kicking and screaming is how that would be drugged down that aisle. So,
so I'm here we go, Mel. Here we go.
You're good.
Some
You're good.
interviews I'm quiet and some I'm not.
Right.
Okay. Nicole, we spoke. We were friends when you were younger, correct?
Yeah.
Did you get rebellious, like right before you were fixing to leave?
Oh, are you kidding? She was rebellious the whole time she was there.
I honestly, I know she colored her hair. I remember she colored her hair blue one time. I remember she cut it all off and it was spiky, super cute. But I cannot for the life of me recall this attitude that you're talking about. I don't know. You must have done it around me.
She might have had it a little muted at her feast, slightly.
She did. That comes down to, and I've heard you guys talk about this with other people before too, the double life that you feel like you have to lead.
Gotcha.
Even if you weren't, married to an elder or in, that type or, a part of an elder's family, it's still, at least for me, I felt like I led a double life. I was lucky because we didn't move down to Texas, so I only had to really pretend when I was down there, and I could more be myself when I was at home because I was very lucky that my mother did not make my sister and I stop seeing our friends. So we still went to public school. Okay. I was still allowed to see friends. Still saw my mom's side of the family. So it gave some balance, but I still had to pretend a lot, when it came to, you got to live a double life. You have to act a certain way. And I would, especially if you were in any form of authority, I'd have to kind of, to a certain extent, play nice until something really took me off. And then it was just, I'm sure my dad has, told Sandy and probably had discussions with Mel, is I made things real difficult for him down there because I was a daughter that wasn't submissive very much.
I must have never irritated you then because I I can't recall that, Nicole. No, I honestly didn't ever know about that, Nicole.
Oh.
And it would make sense that she would have to be held to a higher standard because her father was considered, I don't know if you remember this, Mel, the mechanic. So
Right.
when he would come to feast, he was forever, and I mean, all feast, I felt like, working on a vehicle.
Right.
Yeah, he never got a break. Yeah.
Yeah. He
was
went on
pretty much-
vacation to work on other people's cars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
That's-
I do have an off script question that I didn't think to ask or put in the script, but I'm gonna go off the kilter here too. Were you ever, because I know you never changed your name, you never took on a Yahweh name. Were you ever pressured to do that? Were you ever encouraged to do that? Were you ever called out for not doing that?
Well, we took one that we used down there, but we never legally changed it. Yeah, we never legally changed it, but we had one we used. Like, I think my dad's was like, Yitzhak, your
Yes.
mother had a funny thing she called, I won't say it on here, it'll embarrass him, but your mother had some funny things she used to say about that. But mine was Shamaria. And,
I didn't know you actually even had one. Okay.
And we used it down there. We'd use it amongst each other, you know, and other House of Yahweh members, but we never legally changed it, which was good. Because I didn't want to, and you know, part of it was probably didn't want to spend the money, but that was something that I know that my dad kind of dug his heels on a little bit. Like he always said he was going to do it, but we never did it, and I'm kind of happy that we didn't because I hear it's a big old court process to undo it. So
very expensive. That's why I never changed mine back.
Right, and I can imagine that's why a lot of people kept it, just because it's not worth the hassle or the money.
Right.
Right.
So now this is something I know because I know you, Nicole, and we've talked, but I know that you never really believed in the House of Yahweh teachings. Did that affect your relationship with your parents, and or did that affect any of your relationships with other members? Did you share that with many people when we were actually there?
Not a whole lot. I shared it with my friends back up at home. They knew I was pretty much playing a game just because I loved my family. I wanted to stay in my home. I'm very close with my mother, and even though my father and I butted heads due to the House of Yahweh teachings, that was home, you know,
Right.
and I knew that if you didn't believe, either they put you through a lot of stuff, you know, to make you believe, or if you were a certain age, you just got booted out of your house, and I didn't want that. So I'm sure there were parts when I was younger that I bought into until I was old enough to realize this isn't quite right, you know, but for the 95% of the time, it was, I played a game because I had to, unfortunately. It was more survival than anything else because I wanted to stay with my family.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, you were 10 years old. It wasn't like you had a lot of other options.
Right. And it really hit the teenage years when I'm just like, this is messed up. You know, there's a whole level of messed up here.
This question shocked me. And when I read this question, I thought to myself, what? Did I talk to her? Or was it her sister? I felt like I talked to you both, but I felt like I talked to you more. I would have, Nicole, let me tell you something, honey. I don't know what job you have now, but it is not the right job. You need to be in Hollywood. I have never known any. When Mel sent me these questions, I'm looking at him going, this is Nicole Johnsman, right? Like, okay, I don't know where I was, but okay.
Right.
So wow, good job, Nicole, good job. This is first of all, let me say, may I say your mother's name?
Yes.
Debbie. For anybody who knew her, knew she was the sun, the star, the moon, the rainbows, the butterflies, and everything all in one. I don't think she knew a stranger. I don't think hate was ever in her heart. She was always so welcoming. So that laugh.
Oh yeah.
I can still hear her laugh.
Yes, 21, almost 22 years for me. And I still hear and see that laugh. And I know that she passed away as a member of the House of Yahweh.
Yes.
How was that handled by the House of Yahweh? And you know, how did it affect you being in the House of Yahweh and the circumstances around her passing?
Well, as I stated before, my father was self-employed. And you know, a lot of self-employed people, you don't have insurance, you know. So, I mean, she went to the doctor every 3 months, for blood pressure and thyroid. But other than that, you don't really think much of it. My mom, as most people remember, was a little bit of a larger woman. And, she took great care of herself. But, it was a case of she had a mole on the back of her calf. And she'd accidentally cut into it shaving. And it was like the lower part of her calf. And it never healed right. And when you don't have insurance, you don't just run off to the doctor whenever, because it's costly. And we all know every bit of spare money you have gets sucked up by that place, because if they know you have it, they're going to ask for it. And so we actually had House of Yahweh members, friends from Michigan that were down for a Sabbath. And one of them was a doctor. And my mom had like these capri pants on that just stopped right above where that mole was. And the doctor saw it and saw that, that didn't look right. And he said, that really needs looked at. I'm like, well, we don't have insurance. And he said, you come up our way, I want to biopsy that. And he donated his fees. We just had to pay lab fees and everything. I mean, it was a real blessing in the big picture of, and it's a testament to the goodness of people that we met down there. He didn't have to do any of that, but he did. And that's when we found out that she had, at that point, stage 4 melanoma. And it was big in her leg. And when they said, okay, it's stage 4, we need to get that out, he also had her come up to the hospital, and he did his part of the surgery for free and got his friend that was a plastic surgeon to do the skin graft for him to donate that. So we just had to pay the hospital bills, lab fees, things like that. But, they had it all. And as you know, all it takes is one cell, to miss or even just something to come back up. So, she was, pretty well for, a couple years. And, they said, you got to go check with an oncologist, every so often. He gave us a schedule. Once again, when there's no extra money, and we were going to have to do that down our way, in Ohio, it didn't get done. And unfortunately, it came back, and it came back with a vengeance. And of course, that's when they told us, to use these herbs, use these vitamins, just, pretty much pray it away. And essentially, since it came back and she got worse, they tried to essentially say there was something wrong in our lives between my dad or myself or my mom. That's why it came back and got worse, because something wasn't righteous enough. So pretty much putting the blame on us. We weren't right, and that's why, Yahweh was doing this, to her, which is a load of crap.
Right.
An absolute load of crap. Because you don't take somebody as good of a person as my mother was, and that just doesn't fly with me. And unfortunately, by the time we realized that it was all back, it had spread everywhere. Lymph nodes and kidneys, and once again, buy our stuff. So even if we wanted to use this herb, we couldn't go to our store near our town. We had to order it from the House of Yahweh, because money, goes right back down there. They sent up a lady who's still down there, but she was from Wisconsin, who was a kind of a known herbalist, and she stayed with us and fed my mom all these god-awful smelling things when, like, all my mom wanted was like real food. Like, I snuck her a Hostess cupcake once, because that's all she wanted. I just want to taste something that I like the taste of. And this lady's like, no, you can't get it. I'm like, my mom is dying. She wants a cupcake. I'm giving her the damn cupcake. At this rate, this is what it is. So I went round and round with a few people about that. When I attached to her kidneys, she went on dialysis. And then towards and I don't know if this is, I did not hear about this until well after the fact, but I have to interject just because it adds to the level of messed up that this all is. So I heard about this well after the fact. I don't know why nobody told me, but my dad had informed me that this woman,
I know why they didn't tell you right then and there. I know.
I probably would have been in jail, I'm sure. That would have been, this lady that had come into the guise of helping, my mother and trying to heal her and make her better. When she was really sick, she went to my dad's bank and insurance company and tried to find out how much money was in the business checking and the personal checking and how big of an insurance policy that, life insurance policy that we had. And they wouldn't give her information because, that's not who, you're allowed to talk to. They were allowed to talk to my mom, my dad, and I think my dad might have had me or my sister or maybe another relative on there is, somebody that could, give answers to. But she tried to call and say under the guise of, they're dealing with a lot of stress. We're trying to help them. I just need to make sure affairs are in order. They wouldn't tell her. And then the next day had alerted my father that, someone had tried to, gain access to this information. And pretty much as soon as the bank and the insurance shut her down and said, we're not going to give you the information, she was gone overnight, right back down to Texas, gone, because she couldn't get the information. And to me, he is probably good that he didn't tell me then, because I probably would have ended up in jail. And you can ask Mel, I'm pretty peaceful person. I'm, big little kind of a hippie, just like, but I no, that would not have went well. I'm surprised that it didn't go.
No,
I'm surprised it went over the way it did at that point in time. But, so, at that point, she was on dialysis, and towards the end, she unfortunately had a stroke while on dialysis, which is a risk. And they said they needed to call hospice in. So they said, it could be, a couple days, couple weeks, but they were at the point where they were just going to keep her comfortable. So my uncle, my dad's brother, who had extra space in the house, let us have the hospice bed there, and that's where she was at. They called all these elders to come pray over, do something about, like, I don't know how a woman who couldn't speak at the time, because she was pretty much comatose, supposed to give her last confession to be able to be, a whole level, it was a whole level of shit. But yeah, so our family, when we were there, supposed to be trying to, say our goodbyes, is bombarded with all these elders that came in to try to get the last confessions from her.
So the elders came to your uncle's house.
Yes, to pray
and
over
was
my
trying
mother.
to make her confess.
Well, they were supposed to be there for kind of a final confession type of thing. The whole process of Yeah, it was just the whole thing. And so, Isaiah was 8 months old at that point in time, So,
basically a BS thing where, what did you do wrong that you got cancer and you're dying, kind of thing.
Right,
Like,
and clear your conscience, before you go. Just a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
And so, and my dad's family was very understanding, but they're all kind of standing back in the hallway, just kind of looking, just like, what the hell? Because I'm sure it's just like, what is this, She was there under hospice care for less than 24 hours before she passed. You always hear the stories about, like, when someone dies, it's called a death rattle, and then everybody, the sound that you make, and you hear the stories, and whatnot, and you're like, okay, whatever. To this day, it's been 19 years, and that sound is still as fresh to me as the day it happened. Because it is something that if you've heard it, you don't want to. And it also signifies that that's pretty much, the end of that. And, first and only time I ever saw my grandfather, my mom's dad, cry, ever. So, like I said, the family was there. And as soon as obviously she passed, they were pretty much gone, because the elders left the room before she passed because she couldn't be made unclean. And here's the thing that gets me, and I know that one day she's probably going to regret it. Not now, but my sister was so worried about becoming unclean. She ran from the house when they said, we're talking minutes here, that she left because she didn't want to be unclean. We had a viewing, obviously later that day, very thrown together, because, the House of Yahweh doesn't embalm, and they want you to be buried before sunset. Everything should go super quick. And she wouldn't go in there to say her final goodbyes because she didn't want to become unclean. If there's anybody that you're going to, quote, become unclean, if you believe that crap, for, wouldn't it be, your parents or a spouse or a child, or like something like, I didn't understand that. And that kind of signified to me of just how easy it is to get so wrapped up in some of that stuff, that something's so big and important that your first thought is, I don't want to be unclean. Like, I would think you would rather just deal with that process, but, and I do think that one day she may regret, because she wasn't there, for those things. So yeah, she passed away, and she was in the ground before sunset. So you don't even really have time to process the things at all, And it was a beautiful day, that morning when she passed away. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. And I think it was in August, and just gorgeous. And I just found it interesting about how the weather, when it came time to put the casket in the ground, was very much indicative of the emotions of the day. It pretty much a ridiculous storm rolled in the moment that they started to lower her down. And we're talking like turn your umbrellas inside out, rain and wind, like crazy. But it felt appropriate, because that was the kind of the emotion, at the time. It felt appropriate when that happened. And then that was probably the second time that I almost probably could have gotten in trouble for punching somebody. They were hurrying, and I know that the grave workers were hurrying because it was storming, and they wanted to get all the dirt on there. But they chucked the flowers on top, and I about came unglued on them because it just seemed so. Family was still there, you know.
Right.
I had to walk. I mean, family members had to walk my dad away. Like they had to kind of pick me up out of the mud because I was like, that was the point that I kind of broke down. It's like, and I kind of like fell to my knees because it just all hit me. It all seemed really surreal. And so we spent the night in our house, and my dad went and laid back down. I don't think he slept, but I think he laid down to kind of be by himself. And I sat out in the living room with my sister and her husband at the time, and we all just kind of stared at each other because I mean, it all happened so fast that you can't process anything.
Right.
And I think part of that is it's kind of almost done on purpose, like, because if you can't think straight about, you know, I mean, in the way they handle things, at least, because you don't have time to really think about anything else. So it was big hit.
In hindsight, Nicole, do you think that due to the way that was handled, you weren't able to properly grieve your mom?
Oh, I know I wasn't. I had to be thrown into her role in the household partially because it devastated my father, understandably, so very much that she did all the office work and the parts running and whatnot for the business, and they built that business together. And when Dad was finally able to get back out in this job, I had to try to handle this office work on top of my own 40-hour-a-week job and an 8-month-old baby after losing my own mother. So you bottle things up because you got to keep things moving for everybody else. I mean, Dad was down, understandably, for a while, and it was really a great many years before he was able to really, you know, process things on his own. So yeah, I bottled stuff up hardcore. It wasn't healthy for anybody, for me, for my son, you know, for my dad, just life in general. But it was almost like a survival mode. It was like the fight or flight, you know, that honestly you're in, that I probably was in since I was 10, because once that gets activated, if something's not right here, and you stay in that, you know, it doesn't know when to shut itself off. Yeah, you stay in survival mode, and what it does to you is it does a number sometimes. So, so yeah, it kind of made a mess of things, and that was when I finally stopped playing the game, and I stopped doing the double life. Was I didn't have a reason to. Of course, I love my father. That was an issue, but with Mom gone, I had absolutely no reason to keep pretending.
Right.
And so, and I was just done. But the kicker. I'm sorry, I bounce all over the place. I told Mel I do this. I bounce back and forth.
Oh, you're sometimes. Good. You're doing good.
The kicker was that my mother's body was barely cold. It was less than 24 hours by the time that Yeshua called my father and tried to tell him that he needed him to put a for sale sign on his property, pack up his tools, and move his business and move down there and come work for him. And even said to him, "Oh, it's all right. I will find you a new wife." And so, yeah, that was another thing. Like, I guess there's a lot of moments that I guess I've got some internal rage that I'm mad about, just because it's messed up. I mean, so much of it is just messed up. It doesn't make any sense. It's devoid of basic human decency. It's just, there's no, it's all about what they can take and what he can get and what benefits him. And had my dad was this close, he had talked to some realtors about putting a for sale sign in the yard, because he knew he called him at one of his most vulnerable times.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a tactic. So called him one of his most vulnerable times to try to get him to make a rash decision. "Oh, I'll take care of you. Come down here." Mel, you know how hard my dad is. A hard worker, and he's OCD about everything, and he's a perfectionist, and he's good, a damn good mechanic, very good mechanic. Can you imagine what his life would have been like had he moved down there?
No.
Dude, everything. Like, he would have been a slave. And it was, I'm so happy that he didn't, because when my dad said he was going to do it, I said, okay. I said, "You do this, you're doing it on your own." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "I'm not going." And he said, "Well, where are you going to live?" You know, I had an 8-month-old child, you know, at the time. I said, "I will live in my van," because I had a minivan at the time. And I said, "I will live in my van with my son before I go down there." I said, "But I have family and friends that would never expect me or make me do that." I said, "If you go, you're going on your own. I will not do this anymore." Like, that was my breaking point.
Right.
And so thankfully he didn't, but he didn't just abruptly pretty much just say, you know, "Big F you, I'm not doing this." We had campers down there. My sister and her husband, you know, were part of the House of Yahweh. We had to kind of try to figure out how to strategically remove ourselves
Right.
We decided obviously that it wasn't really worth it to try to get 2 trucks down there to take our campers back, but we did have things in there. So we went down another feast, maybe it was even two gatherers and things. And I know that last one, we handed over signed titles of our campers to my sister to do with what she wanted. And now in hindsight, I'm sure she just handed them over to Israel, and he probably sold them for way more than they were worth to somebody.
Right.
But at that rate, what she wanted to do with them was, for her. And that was the heartbreaking part, was that my sister and Kassan wasn't ready to leave.
Right.
They didn't, they thought we were terrible, as they teach, because
Right.
we were leaving. And as much as we tried to tell them, we're family and we love you and something's not right, there's so many things not right here. They were doing what, they've always been told to do, is, resist people trying to tell you, it's wrong, trying to pull you away.
Right.
So we became the followaways. I think we got a letter, if I'm not mistaken, about how we were wrong and we needed to repent, come back, otherwise, we would never see my mom again. We would never see her in the kingdom of heaven, that we'd be resurrected and then tossed in the lake of a fire, and they would live forever in the kingdom with mom, and we'd never see her again. So, all the tactics that they do.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, a whole level of messed up, really.
So, and I don't know the answer to this question, Nicole, which a lot of these I kind of knew the answer because I've heard some of your story before, but I
Right.
know that you got pregnant for your son while you were still a member of the House of Yahweh, but you weren't.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, but you weren't married. So how were you treated, or how was that handled by the House of Yahweh? Did anybody say anything to you? How did that play out?
Right. I think for the most part, I think my dad caught the brunt of that more than anything, because he was supposed to be responsible, for me never. Like I said, I gave my dad a run for his money only because I was just trying to be a normal, be myself and not be led into something. And he realizes that now, but boy, he was mad at me growing up on all the trouble I gave him. My dad himself would not even recognize that I was expecting until about 2 months before I was born. Ignored the fact. Would not acknowledge it at all.
Wow.
My mom, even though it wasn't under the best circumstances, my mom was so excited. Even though it wasn't under the best circumstances. And we were doing everything we could to try to get ready for the baby, and gather things, and, and I mean, granted, I was in my early 20s, but it still was all new to me, and I was obviously doing it according to my dad's the wrong way. And that was kind of part of the reason, going back a little bit, part of the reason why we didn't notice my mom was starting to get sick again, because we just thought we were just so tired running around getting ready for the baby. That's why we didn't realize that she was, running down there. She was tired. I was tired. We were running around like crazy getting stuff ready, and we didn't, notice it. But
Right.
I don't remember it specifically. And there very well may have been some elders that tried to talk to me and said, but I don't recall it. My dad, I think, probably caught the brunt of that. That was the embarrassment. Whatever.
So,
And then it was probably upset me and hurt my feelings, but now I just laugh at it and go, hey, yeah, whatever.
right. Okay, we have some more questions, but we're gonna have to do a part 2 because we're down to 4 minutes. So we're gonna stop.
Okay.
We're gonna come back and do a part 2 because we have more questions for you. So we'll be right back.